All right, at 4:07, the Peter Gammons Report brought to you by Sunrise Volkswagen, where the sun always shines on savings. Peter, what's going on?
Well, it's just we did have a little fun with Tampa Bay and the Red Sox last night, but
yeah, that was interesting.
That's they have kind of a long-standing. I mean, that thing's been going on since Pedro Martinez was drilling Gerald Williams. But it's a very feisty. It's a very feisty relationship. I mean, it was they've had fights with Coco Crisp, and Joe Madden's been out on the field, and there's a lot that's happened, and it's part of what makes the Rays good. But they play with such a chip on their shoulders, and I mean, if you talk to people in the American, they'll say there's no team that chirps more than the Rays. I mean, they're yelling at people all the time, and I don't take it as being cocky. I think it's just that they're the little guys fighting the big guys, and they play with kind of that Joe Madden looseness, and they yell at people, and it makes for something a little interesting. I thought Madden was brilliant in that. I mean, I did think that the whole thing with standing there, dropping the bat, and showing up Lackey on a foul home run was a bit much. And he didn't. It wasn't like he threw it his head. But I'm not a great believer in hitting somebody when you've got a lead. But that said, I thought Madden was brilliant. He knows Lackey really well. And I think after the game, when he said, well, he's a bad teammate and all that kind of thing for hitting him, I mean, Joe knows Lackey really takes pride in being one of the most popular guys in a clubhouse. And, I mean, there was when he was so bad for 2 years, the one thing that all his teammates would say with the Red Sox, hey, I mean, the guy is as good a teammate as there is. And so, I mean, it's Joe being the master psychologist. And, it's pretty cool the way he manipulates guys.
Yeah, and he's unorthodox, and, they treat every run so precious because it's so hard for them to score. I mean, they have to build runs against even against the Red Sox, against the Yankees, too. And they play both teams well. They do a good job.
They do a very good job. They play Baltimore very tough. And I mean, I know the Orioles have some fairly strong feelings about the Rays as well, but that's okay. I mean, they've won 90 games for the last 5 years. They're going to probably do it 5 out of 6 on a payroll of about $50 million a year. That is astounding.
Yeah, very smart, unorthodox, but a very good owner and a very smart organization all the way down the line. They know what they're doing. They know who they are, and they're very good at and the way they go about things is very interesting. And even to the point where Sternberg now makes, I think, a very compelling point about, hey, if I am going to be at the top now, you got to, since I'm a small market, let me get in the draft at a decent place some years. Otherwise, I can't compete because otherwise I get penalized every year for being good. Now you're going to hurt me too much because I don't have the revenue to go out and buy players when I can't draft them.
I agree. I mean, they've added some of they had, well, you got a couple of extra picks at 34 and 30. That's not good enough. I mean, I think that there should be some way to take the 3 or 4 smallest revenue teams and give them a shot at drafting somewhere 7 to 10 in the first round.
Yeah, he makes a very good argument for that. He really does.
Oh, I do. Well, you know who else has argued that very strongly is Scott Boras. So if you want if you want it's not the worst teams getting the best draft choice. It's the poorest teams who are well run. Why should the Rays be punished for being well run and well managed? I mean, and that's been Sternberg's point. It's been Boris's point. And I think there's a lot to be said for it. So I agree with you. I think Sternberg is an unbelievable owner.
Yeah, so I think he's a great owner. I think he does a tremendous job. We're talking about Peter Gammons. I'll tell you what else I would do, Peter. I'd come to the point now that if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to go spend a little money. I'm going to go hang out in Cuba because after Chapman, Cepeda, and Puig, I think we can all go get some players out of Cuba. My God, if George were alive, some of these guys would have been Yankees. I don't know how Puig got past everybody. I mean, you look at the contracts these guys got, and they're all reasonable considering they're really good. I mean, I don't expect him to be, Hank Aaron, but boy, he Cespedes looks tremendous. Chapman has been tremendous, and now Puig comes in here and takes over baseball.
I agree. I mean, and I think in the long run, Cespedes might be better than Puig because he's already so intelligent and learns so much discipline. Puig, but Puig is giving the Dodgers life, and it's Iglesias is going to end up being a pretty good shortstop for the Red Sox.
I like him. He's got a good bat too.
Yeah, he's all of a sudden learning to hit.
Yeah.
What you said, it's really interesting because in the last couple of days, I've talked to people. There's a pitcher named Miguel Gonzalez who was, scouting people like to say he was a guy. And about 4 years ago, he was the number one pitcher on the Cuban national team. He got hurt a little bit. He tried to defect. He got caught, went back, got suspended, didn't play. Well, now he's out. He's in Mexico. His arm is rehabbing. And there are like 20 teams down there watching this guy throw every time he goes to the bullpen. Today, there were like 25 teams in the Dominican for some guy who's a little bit younger, about 25 years old, who's apparently got a pretty good arm. And when you look at some of the pitchers that teams are trotting through to start games now. I mean, if these guys were pretty good in Cuba, why not give them a shot and see what happens? And, maybe in September or Gonzalez, or I can't even pronounce this other guy's name, but maybe they'll both end up in the bigers or maybe next year. But it's, I agree. And the thing is that if a Cuban is over, there's a limit to what you can spend internationally.